What is happening? And a very warm welcome to the Physique Formula, the Diet Series Episode 1. We are starting from the ground up here, and it is how to set up a diet efficiently. If you follow me on Instagram, which most of you I'm sure will do, and even tune into some of the YouTube as well, you know how fondly I speak of like the phase that you are in currently. It is set up, and the trajectory is sort of determined by the phase prior. So this is how to set up a diet efficiently, going from, you know, that 10-week pre-diet to obviously, 1 week pre-diet where everything should obviously be in place. But I'm going to talk over that obviously throughout the video. So starting off, first of all, 10 weeks pre-diet, upwards of 10 weeks pre-diet, you should be realistically already by this point pushing food to create a long runway to pull from. The rationale behind this is that if you start a diet on low food, taking away from low food, you're only going to be, in the quote unquote trenches faster. Again, it's almost kind of setting yourself up for a poor, more challenging, more hard diet than you actually have to be. So the reason we push food is to create that long runway to pull from. Now, realistically, you could take person A who's dieting from, they've just pushed their food up to say upwards of 4,000 calories. They have now got a long, long runway to pull from and still be, semi comfortable in that, compared to the person who starts their diet at say 3,000 calories or even sub 3,000 calories. So that's the idea behind that. The idea that you have, more food to pull from, a longer runway, not being super super uncomfortable from the get-go in the diet. And that again is a sort of common misconception, that you need to be uncomfortable from the get-go in a diet. It's not really the case. You don't need to be dying from the word go, and if that is the case, I would say that is either a poorly managed or a poorly set up diet. And now the second sort of point is low to moderate expenditure. Obviously this sort of stuff is based on, your digestion currently, appetite, and just general health as well. Now, you don't want to be going into a diet like with silly high steps. Obviously, again, there's so many different things that can impact this. So say you've got an active job and you're doing 15 to 20k steps a day anyways, there's nothing you can do about that, so there's no point in worrying about it. But stuff like cardio, there's no point in, say, doing like 5 cardio sessions a week at like 45 minutes, head into the diet, because at the end of the day, to elevate that from there, you're only going to be, pushing yourself further and further away from homeostasis. And when you are in a diet, that is also another, thing that is pushing you further away from homeostasis. That's not exactly an ideal sort of environment to be dieting in. So looking to obviously set up with low to moderate expenditure, obviously, as I said, based on your digestion, appetite, and health as a whole. In the current phase, prior, which will 9 times out of 10 be some form of gaining phase, maybe perhaps a holding phase as well. Food sources locked in as well. Now this is a big one. You often see people, transition from gaining to diet, and they all of a sudden they want to have, it's a case of why have you gone from 2 to 5 sweet meals a day? It's a case of you want to be keeping your food sources similar. You should already know what foods sit well with you from a digestion standpoint, and it's just a case of having less of the foods that you had in your gaining phase. It generally is as simple as that. Not wanting to change anything, just for the sake of trying to satisfy cravings, trying to run from hunger, because at the end of the day, that 9 times out of 10 can end up exacerbating your hunger in the long run, anyways. And when it comes to stuff like trying to over volumize foods as well, it's often kind of in the same topic. There's no point in trying to do that either, because it's not going to be conducive to your goals from a digestion standpoint, and it's not going to be conducive to keeping your midsection nice and tight throughout the diet. So yeah, that is point number 3. Point number 4, your diet phase mapped out. Realistically, a timeline is obviously subject to change. However, having that timeline in place from the word go, again, I find it increases clarity, increases confidence within the direction that you or the client is heading in. And I do think that is, again, very, very beneficial. Just to be able to see on a sheet where you are at X of a time is, for me, that's never going to be a negative. Now, again, a sort of underlooked variable as well is having a routine just set in place. Not, not setting alarms, like getting up at X of a time in the day and just, letting yourself sleep in and eating meals, your meal timing is all off. Now, I'm not saying you need to eat a meal to the minute, but not a case of like some days you're waking up and you're bouncing out of bed and you're having to have your meal straight away because you're waking up late, and sometimes you're having it 2 hours post wake. Sort of keeping that standardized, keeping that routine. Sort of you try and train at the same time every day. You kind of try and, you know, eat your meals at the same time every day, sleep at the same time of the day, each day, and wake at the same time each day. Again, obviously sometimes life gets in the way. You can't adhere to that sort of time. Again, there's no point in stressing about it. You can't control it. But for the most part, setting up a routine, massively, massively important when it comes to sleep and wake time as well. Because at the end of the day, that's going to sort of be the governor within, you know, how your time is spent throughout a day. If you're awake for the same time, for the same amount of time, from the same time to time each day, again, it's going to be a lot easier to plan your day around that. So that is 10 weeks and upwards of how to set up your diet efficiently. Now, you know, sort of within that sort of 4 week period, training execution is progressible throughout the diet. Now, assuming that obviously your training beforehand was not fucking really silly, but at the end of the day, like, there is some stuff you can get away with in a gaining phase. For example, more body language on, say, a barbell row, more body language on, say, like a non-chest supported row, etc., etc. Just a case of like focusing on that getting strong. But now, when you come within that sort of 4 weeks realm pre-diet, you want to be making sure that your training execution is going to be, you know, to a high standard where you are going to be able to progress that throughout the diet. And again, it's not a case of obviously your training beforehand is dog shit. It's just a case of it. These little variables need to be fine tuned and to ensure that you can progress throughout a diet and you can progress your training, you can progress your physique throughout a diet. Especially if it's not a contest prep. Obviously, at the later end of a contest prep, you know, at some point, again, it's so person dependent, and obviously situation dependent as well, where the goal is switched from, you know, growing to just maintaining the muscle that you have built throughout previous gaining phases. And within the sort of 4 week realm as well, you can often have an accurate judgment of where your macros are going to be. And again, it sort of helps just to have, you know, that sort of plan in place. It's there, you can see it. And again, it just improves clarity and confidence within the whole process, I find. Potentially looking to go into some form of holding phase as well. Now, sometimes like the kind of trade off of pushing up, say 4 kilos, 4 kilos. Say within 4 weeks you're going to push up, say, a kilo is what is on the timeline. Sometimes pushing for that extra kilo, the trade off for an extra kilo of body weight, for what you're going to, you know, get in a return from training performance, just simply isn't worth it. And again, this is something that I like to do with clients as well. Like, there is no point when you come to this point in a lot of different scenarios to pushing for an extra kilo or whatever that may look like in the timeline, although obviously it would be judged primarily off of training performance and the physique itself. So you'd maybe want to enter a holding phase. Again, it just means that, you know, you're not having an extra kilo or, you know, in the realms of a kilo to take off in the diet. Now, 1 week pre-diet, again, this is pretty simple. A meal plan in place. Obviously, you will have had macros. Just again, fine tuning that plan. The plan is in place. The meal plan is in place. No sort of changes to training. From a volume standpoint, although one thing that I would like to do myself, again, it's so person dependent. If you don't want to do this, you don't have to do it. But this is within my sort of experience. I would like to take away any set extenders. Again, obviously, we know, or we should know, that straight sets are going to be so much more beneficial from a stimulus to fatigue ratio. Again, when you're in an off season though, you can, you know, almost kind of quote unquote get away with these set extenders. Again, it's another way of adding on extra volume to a muscle group, especially if you say perhaps you don't have as much time on your hands as you maybe would like a little myo rep, like set extender in there, you know, on, say, like for biceps, triceps, a pec deck, lateral raise, for these smaller sort of movements, smaller sort of muscle groups, you know, may pay dividends for yourself. But with regards to meals and stuff, meal plan in place, everything, you know, plan is in place. You can see it, it's clear, you know, you've got confidence within your process. And 0 off plan meals as well. Now, this is a lot of people go, oh, I'm 1 week 1 week pre-diet, time to fit in everything I can have, because I'm not going to be able to have it for so long. And I do think it's common, it's very, very common, but I do think it is poor from like a promoting like a healthy relationship with food sort of standpoint. And this is something that I like to do for myself. It's something that I've trialed with clients as well, and I have seen a positive return, and just reducing overall food focus, food noise. It's just having zero off plan meals in that sort of. It doesn't have to be 7 days leading up to the diet, but even if it's just 5 days leading up to the diet, not fucking eating off plan the day before your diet. Again, all that's just going to do is give you the potential for more digestive stress leading into the diet. You feel shit from the get go. Again, it's just not getting off on the right foot for the diet. So yeah, that is a wrap on episode number 1. A little short episode, as I want to keep them sub 15 minutes realistically. So yeah, that is episode 1 of the diet series. It's how to set up your diet efficiently, and now we're building from the ground up. So I hope to see you for the next episode, and until then, I will speak to you soon. Goodbye.